This is Zion. Today I want to talk about self-honor and boundaries. Those moments in which we are pushed towards the frustration of being upset in a certain situation where we're unhappy with something that's happening. And we have a choice, right? Those moments are so powerful and potentially so pivotal in our lives. And another thing that I want to talk about is the premenstrual phase and the enchantress, because often we have these feelings coming up during the premenstrual phase. We get frustrated, we get irritated, we get angry, and a lot of different emotions come up, right? And too often we minimize these feelings. We tell ourselves, oh, I'm just hormonal. Oh, I'm just too sensitive. Oh, I'm just exaggerating this. Or, oh, I'm just on my period. But no. Everything that we feel when we're premenstrual is so important. It's like magnifying emotions, feelings, needs, boundaries that have been there. Potentially not heard, not honored for a while. And so it comes in full force, right? And we're like, why am I feeling like this over something so small? It's not small. It's just that we're looking at it too much from the surface. And you don't have to be premenstrual for you to feel like you're being pushed and uncomfortable in a situation. You know those kind of moments where life kind of throws you a curveball, or you're faced with a situation in which you can either go along with what's expected from you or what you're used to doing, even though maybe it doesn't feel so good, or staying true to your boundaries, staying true to your desires, to your needs, to what is honest and authentic for you. You know those moments when you're like, oh, okay. Because it's not easy. It is not easy to be like, hell no, I'm not going to keep doing what I've been doing. Let me stand up for myself. Let me talk about my needs. Let me talk about my boundaries. Let me say what I really want. Let me say no to this request. Let me say no to this bullshit. It's hard. Okay? Like, so many of us have so many fears around this, understandably. We've been conditioned not to speak about our needs. We've learned that there are so many consequences to it, to being seen. So, where do we end up in all of that? In that old paradigm. We're not the priority. So what are we? What happens with what's really important for us? And over a period of time, while we've been ignoring what's really true for us and what we really want and don't want in our lives and our relationships, what happens then? Like, obviously, this is going to be reflected in the way that we feel about ourselves, in our health. This is a huge part of womb issues, by the way. Huge. Like, for a lot of women, including myself, one of the biggest keys to healing different issues in the womb, it's actually respecting yourself and your boundaries. Because when you don't, you get caught into a lot of messy situations that don't honor you, that hurt you, that make you fill in the blank. And those emotions and that resentment and that hurt and that tension and stress in your body is reflected in your womb health. It's reflected in your health, your mental health, everything, your hormonal balance, everything. So honoring ourselves is honestly so important, because without it, whose life are we really living? If we're not on our own side, if we're not rooting for ourselves, standing up for ourselves, how are we supposed to really trust ourselves? How are we supposed to feel safe in our own bodies? Because we're not creating a safe environment within ourselves as long as we keep saying yes to things that we want to say no to. As long as we don't speak about the things that we want and desire. As long as we keep pleasing other people and conforming to other people's expectations and not to our own. And this is, for me, honestly, this is the biggest teaching that comes from the enchantress. The enchantress is the archetype that's usually the most present during our premenstrual phase, going back to what I was saying before. And if you were in my masterclass, Sacred Cycle Mysteries, you already know about this. The enchantress is the one who is holding space for the transformation. She is in the fire of it. She's wild, primal, sensual, erotic, powerful. She is a gateway between heaven and earth, imagination and reality. She is the birth portal. She is sacred, but unfortunately, we have learned to reject so many of her characteristics. And many of us are in conflict with our inner enchantress, with the wild woman. And it's like we've become domesticated, you know? But we're not. We are wild. Women are wild and extremely powerful. And we need to learn what powerful means in a feminine sense, because feminine power is different to masculine power. And that's not just to say feminine as women and masculine as men. Like, sure, there's connections, but talking about feminine power when it comes to us women is important because we predominantly have feminine energy. So learning what feminine power really is to each one of us is really important. We're not here to operate from the dominant, harsh, patriarchal structure. Because that's not good for anyone. Men, women, children, no one. And it's definitely not natural for women. Our power comes from a different place. And honestly, men's power also comes from a different place. That's not true power. To me, that's completely just wounded masculine energy. But we call it power. And we are completely disempowered. And so no wonder why we struggle so much to speak about our boundaries, to take care of ourselves, to put ourselves first, to honor ourselves. And I think it's funny because life puts us in situations in which we have to choose between honoring ourselves and our values and some other thing that's usually also important for us, or that feels scary or vulnerable, you know, or we feel a little tied for some reason. And it's so easy to go into the old ways. But the moment that you say, actually, you know what? I'm going to do this differently. You're giving yourself and the universe such a powerful message about your worth, about your self-respect, and about what you deserve. And the things that come from that, from those decisions, those pivotal decisions in which you are so brave, they're huge. First of all, because you feel at peace with yourself, even if it means that you have to, quote unquote, sacrifice certain things that could be convenient or even unnecessary. Sometimes we act from a lack mentality, and we don't realize that there's a lot of ways to get the things that we need and want, and that we do not need to compromise our own self-respect. We do not need to compromise our needs, our boundaries, or our truth in any capacity. And for as long as we think that we do need to do that, we will keep building from that kind of structure, that kind of mindset, and that kind of way of doing things. It's one way. It's okay. It's a choice. That's the thing. It's a choice. There is another way. There's a way in which you can put yourself at the center of your life, honoring yourself. And I found that during my premenstrual phase, especially back in the day, years ago, when I would really struggle with my premenstrual phase and my bleeding days on my period, I remember that those days were incredibly emotional for me, but not emotional like in a cute way, you know, not emotional like, oh, I feel, you know, tender and soft, and like, no. This was like major emotional crisis breakdowns, okay? Like hating life and hating myself and having all these insecurities come up and getting lost in them, and PMS symptoms and all the things. And through this process, I learned why this was happening. I realized how powerful this wild woman inside of me was. And that all of these emotions and this thunder that was happening inside of me, all of this chaos, it was a revolution. She, my wild woman, she was begging me for the honor that she deserved. And the enchantress will never step off her throne. She is sat there. She knows what she deserves, and she demands being worshipped and respected. And we have so much to learn from her. She is so beautiful. And I really believe that it's important to reclaim those lost aspects, those characteristics, those feminine qualities that we've rejected for so long. The feminine power. And when we do embrace that and listen and know that all of these feelings, all of these emotions are here to support us, we can transform our lives in such beautiful ways. And this is mirrored literally when we take the time to listen to our emotions through these difficult moments. And we choose based on what is honoring ourselves, it is reflected in our world, in our relationships, in the kind of people we attract, the kind of situations we encounter, the way that we think, the way that we sleep, everything. And when I dove into this journey and I started to go into the chaos and learn from it, and move with it in my body, my PMS symptoms went away. I no longer had these emotional crises. I don't remember when was the last time this happened to me. Years ago. And now I feel stable on my energy levels, physically, emotionally, and I also feel really empowered while I'm premenstrual and also while I'm bleeding, because I'm more connected with my enchantress. I'm more connected with my subconscious. I'm more connected with this grounded, powerful, mystical energy, and it's not suffering. It's so sensual, so beautiful, so honest, and it shows me where I've been too patient. And I can start being a little more unapologetic. And a little more and a little more, taking up a little more space, giving myself permission. And when I'm in my premenstrual phase, I know that if I have emotions coming up or certain thoughts coming up that are uncomfortable, I know that these are my liberation. And that by going into them, I come out feeling more connected to myself. And attracting more of the sweetness, more of the beauty, more of the recognition, more of the connection, more of the abundance, and more of the beautiful things that my heart desires. So I really wanted to share this with you, to invite you to listen, to invite you to bring it closer, even if it's a little uncomfortable, to call it in instead of running away and distracting yourself. Call it in, welcome it in, listen, be grateful for it. Okay, maybe sometimes we're not gonna feel grateful for it. That's okay too. And know that there's a gift in it for you. And sometimes it's these parts of ourselves that we fear the most. They hold the key to let go of that fear and realize that actually there was nothing to fear. It's way more scary to stay where you are before you listen to what your enchantress has to say, what your anger has to say, what your frustration has to say, what your tension in your body has to say, what your pain in your womb has to say. All of that is important. And it's not something that we should normalize. It's not something that we should be struggling with every month. Hell no. There is another way. So, what is she trying to tell you? Journal about it. Listen to her. Let yourself feel it. Let yourself move with it. And I would really love to hear how this is resonating. If you're having any insights or memories coming up or any feelings, please let me know in the comments, send me a DM. Let's connect. Like if there's something I like to talk about, it's the enchantress. It's definitely all of these emotions. Like let's shine light on it. Let's do it together. And sharing it is so powerful because when you share something that's been covered in shame, in guilt, in fear, and you expose it and you let someone else see it, you liberate yourself. It's like there's no more shame around it anymore, especially if that person can welcome it. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And if you're feeling called to go deeper into this work, let me know. Send me a message. Because I have something really, really cool coming up that's connected to the enchantress that you're gonna love. And if you want even more personalized support, I have 2 open spots to work with me one-on-one. With womb healing, feminine embodiment, emotional healing in very deep, nourishing, amazing containers. And I would love to welcome you into the space if this is the work that you want to do. So let me know and we can set up a call to connect. I can send you information. And let's do it. It's time. It really is time. Okay, beautiful one. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for showing up for yourself. I'm looking forward to connect with you and hear your insights and feelings. And I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.